hospital, board to order at 12:10. And our first order of business is public comment. You notice I had, there were a couple of items under there that I thought we could have discussion on with everyone in here. If there's other comment that isn't one of these two items, let's do that first, and then we can have some discussion. So, is there anyone that had any discussion had a comment that wasn't related to either of those items?
Why the change in time for this meeting? When it was discussed at last meeting that we would put 7 so people who worked could come, including Dr. Terry?
Well, the biggest problem was we have to have our CEO here, and they had Montana Hospital Association meeting in Billings. There were meetings that needed to be attended at like 8 o'clock in the morning, and we didn't think that was advisable to make him drive all night long to get to Billings to be at a meeting. Then he has to be there 2 hours, so that's why that was moved. And then this is a one-time. Go ahead, Colleen.
No, I was just gonna ask the next question.
Okay.
As a nonprofit funded taxpayer dollars hospital, we're asking you if you have a final figure on the amount that you need to pay back. It was reported that it was $130,000 last month, and Michelle was quoted as not having a final figure yet. Do you have a final figure
I
on
haven't
this?
seen any.
And how do you plan on paying this money? How do you plan on paying this money back?
First, the health center's gonna have to figure that one out. As if any involvement that we have, I don't know, because we haven't, from what I understand, they don't have a final figure.
So
We
there was
haven't
no
gotten that
salaries
far.
charged to the grant for direct and indirect costs that must now be returned from the hospital?
I don't have any of that I don't think that we are even that far yet as far as getting some of that stuff paid back.
The grant was
It-
administered by the health center, and that's where the figures have to come from. But we don't, and they'll tell us if there's stuff in that is a hospital's responsibility, but the grant
Well,
was
where are
health
they
center.
gonna get the money to pay it back?
That's a really great
It's gonna depend
question.
on what the issues are.
When is their board meeting?
It's Thursday at 1. This Thursday at 1.
And then at the last meeting, I asked you if John Updike's position was advertised before he was hired, and you said you'd find the answer out for me.
It was advertised. I know that there were other candidates that were interviewed.
Where was it advertised?
I don't know. The board doesn't do that. I don't know.
Steve does.
It was advertised on the ACHE website.
HAC, okay. And,
Nowhere publicly? Here?
Stacy also, or Stacy, is she here?
I'm right here. I don't know.
okay. And was he hired with federal grant money?
No.
But it was advertised somewhere, at some board.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Do you have a problem with that?
Well, because they're both Mormons, the story out there is he hired his best friend from Utah,
Okay.
instead of it being advertised. So I just wanted to clear that up.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's not the case.
There's a regular protocol for advertising.
Well, it wasn't advertised around here though.
That's a very common website to advertise it on for healthcare executive positions.
See, we can clear them up, just gotta ask the questions.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Part of it's because there's such a specialized skill set for some of that gotta be very targeted. So.
All I can say, John, is I'm glad you're not a Methodist.
How many applications did you get, do you know?
Oh, I've had probably 6 or 7 from what I remember.
Okay, I guess that's all I got. We've no clue on where they're gonna get the money to pay it back. Do you think that they're thinking about raising the mill levy and making the county pay for it?
The health center doesn't have the ability to do that.
Well, when I talked to Michelle, she said she was gonna get the money from the hospital. So that's
Well,
why I'm here.
That's a good question. Why don't we go in, because I wanted to, for the community and stuff that were here, I wanted to give kind of an overview of how some of that stuff is structured. I think that might be a helpful exercise. We might do it again next month, because I know Lori Johnston was interested in wanting to do that, so.
Let me make one more comment
Go ahead,
too,
John.
just on something you said. I don't think there's anybody on either board that thinks that it would be a good idea right now to go to the public for a mill levy increase.
I think that's a true statement.
That'd be the last,
Yeah.
very last.
So, thought maybe I would come to the board, and if anyone, you guys wanna
Can
pipe
I
up,
help-
or if you have
Can I help
questions?
answer a
Can we
question?
finish
Sure.
public comment?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I
Um,
thought we were
To
ready.
Colleen's question, I had met Steve once, I talked to him on the phone, I was recruiting positions for him, so I became acquainted with him on the phone. Because I'd built hospitals in the past, I was invited up and spent 3 or 4 hours, it's about 3 hours, talking with the board, showing them how to build a hospital, because they were looking at that 2.5 years ago. But as far as being close friends, we weren't. You know.
But you do go to the same church.
Yeah, so do 15 million other people. Okay?
Go to your
So,
church?
Worldwide, yes.
Well, you can see where the public got that.
Oh, sure.
There's two
No.
CEOs that are both Mormons.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry about that. I feel very qualified to do this job and feel like I am doing the job. And it has nothing to do with whether or not I'm a Mormon.
Okay. Well, these are just out there, so we're
Yeah,
clearing them
well,
up
no,
now.
I appreciate the question. All right.
Yeah, if you look at the people we hired here,
They weren't Mormons.
I mean, I don't ask them what religion they are, so, I mean,
But
I
they
know
don't
who
go to
goes
your
to my,
church,
I know
right?
who goes to my church, but, I mean, I don't ask that question.
Did Patterson go to your church?
Not that I'm aware of.
Patterson?
Yeah.
I
Dr.
don't know.
Patterson that you
Not that
fired?
I'm aware of.
Steve hired me.
Well, I hired
to go to
him.
his church.
That's not a question you ask in an interview.
No, you can't ask that.
That's against the law.
Colleen, did you have any other questions?
No, I think I'm done, thank you.
Okay.
Anyway, it's for the public, because this is what's out there.
Yeah, I'm
And so
sorry.
it's getting cleared up, because there's just a lot of stories out there that
I understand.
We should clear up some more of them too.
Okay.
Have all the crossover directors gone one direction or another?
That hasn't happened yet, and I don't know that all of them will.
Why?
I will, for sure.
They made it very clear they didn't want crossovers.
No, that's not
Who's
the
they?
case.
Your grantor,
No, that is not true.
That's not the case. They said they did not want a majority of crossovers, but they had no problem with there being some crossovers and felt some crossovers were a good idea.
They had a bigger conflict with sharing a CEO. That was really the biggest issue that the grantor had.
how was the search for a new CEO for the clinic going?
I'm not on that committee, but I know that there's some promising candidates that, for an interim, it's gonna take a while to find a permanent, 'cause you wanna get the right person in there. That's as far as I know. I'm not on that committee, but, there are some promising for the interim.
And I guess the one other question I had was that, are the trustees liable for any of the missing grant money?
I don't think so.
No.
There was no indication of any laws that were broken or anything as, in that regard. I've
Well,
never
they-
heard, I have not heard
Right.
anything in that.
The money
respect.
that the trustees are in charge of was not used.
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Yeah, I don't know how.
The trustees are in charge of the money,
Of oversight.
of oversight of
Right.
money.
Right.
Was any
There-
of the money that they have oversight of used in this misappropriation of funds?
I don't.
I'm not quite-
Does anybody understand the question?
I don't.
I don't.
There was no trustee, I can't even think of the right word, there was no trustee, allegation. I don't even see where that is an issue.
The only way, the board of directors is responsible for overseeing the financial operations.
Right.
Okay. What occurred was grant money was spent for things that were not appropriately charged to the grant. And when that came to light, we're working through with the grant. And again, not this board, again, you're asking health center issues in the hospital board.
No, I'm just asking if any of the money that you're in charge of taking care of was misappropriated.
And I don't know how to answer that, because what we are here as a hospital are in charge of is the hospital's budget. Some of the grant money was used for expenses that should have been charged maybe to the health center and maybe to the hospital, and we don't have a full answer to that. So we're not in charge of anything that the health center does here. We're in charge of what the hospital does, and the grant is run by the health center. So, I mean, there's like 4 steps removed on your question. I don't know how to answer it. It's still not making sense.
I think what she's just trying to ask is, I mean, if the budget is presented to you guys as a board, and you're looking at it and saying, yes, we approve this allocation to be spent. And so what she's just trying to simply say is, did you guys approve any dollars or monies that were misappropriated?
Okay.
As simple as that.
2 steps. Number 1, the health center handles the grant, not us. So it never would have.
But your board asks for that money, is that correct? So you
No.
guys ask for disbursements?
No,
Okay.
it never comes to this board at all.
Okay.
It's health center, number
So that's
1.
probably where the
Number 2, we don't look at every single line item expenditure. We don't look at and approve, yes, you can go buy another box of Band-Aids. We look at the overall budget, the overall big picture. We don't see every little bit, but again, all of those little bits were health center, not hospital.
Even the salaries charged to the grant,
The board doesn't approve that.
Yeah.
doesn't approve the salaries?
Mm-mm.
No.
The
Who
board-
did those salaries?
The only
go to?
salary we have anything to do with is the CEO salary. We hire the CEO, and from there, the CEO handles it.
And the CEO salary didn't get charged to the grant, directly or indirectly?
Not that I'm aware of, and again, it would be the health center CEO, not the hospital CEO,
Was that the same
not this
CEO?
board.
It was.
That-
It was
that-
the
that
same,
one
it was the same person, but any compensation he receives from the health center wouldn't go to the hospital board.
It is confusing, huh?
It is, and it's being,
Yeah.
Well, there was a percentage
Right,
that both paid.
right, right. And that percentage, the percentage on the health center goes to the health center board, and the health center board deals with it.
But did you guys have an agreement, like an agreement to say the CEO will oversee both boards,
yes.
or both? Okay.
Yep.
So, and that's where the percentages probably came from, is that agreement?
Yep.
We understand that it's confusing.
No, it is, but I think
It's,
that
it's,
And that's
it's-
where Amy's
we're-
going next,
Yeah,
I
we're,
think.
we're in the process of the real separation. There's been so much, entanglement that it's been confusing for everyone. And we're in the process, I think, both organizations, of unentangling a lot of those issues. So, bear with us, because we're still in the middle of doing that. So I think one of the first steps was the CEO entanglement issues being resolved, and I think a lot of those issues will be resolved as a result of that, so.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, I think part of understanding it is that at the time that grant was applied for, the board did not understand, and I'm not sure whether anybody else did or didn't understand, but the boards, and this predates my being here, but it's what I've picked up, did not understand the degree that the 2 entities had to be separate.
That's true.
And it just wasn't made clear to the boards when that grant was applied for, how separate they needed to be. And that's clearly as part of what came out with the HRSA site visit is the additional separation that is required because of the grant that we weren't aware of. So we're now trying
It's hard
to
for the
accomplish
public,
that.
Right, and it's
Yeah.
hard for the public to see what that hierarchy is when you look at an organizational chart and you have a CEO and 2 separate boards. So
Yep.
I think you guys are gonna get questions, quite frankly.
We understand
are
that.
related
Oh,
to
yeah,
the
we
health
do.
center.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and so it's a really hard division to distinguish when you have one CEO, so.
And believe me, when I came on the board in the beginning, I didn't understand it either, and it took me a while, and it wasn't just a 5-minute explanation, and now I've got it,
Right.
before I
And you're
understood it
not a
either.
mature- And you're not a mature board where you have to have the communications between the 2 boards flow fluently, and that's
And we're
difficult.
working through some of that right now.
Yeah,
If,
understandably so.
were there any other comments that weren't related to the issue that we're discussing?
Well, you asked me when I talked to you on the phone, you said that you know that you've lost the public's trust, and is there anything I could think of that
That's right.
could bring the public's trust back?
That's right.
And I was thinking, well, when you're sick, you don't look at your CEO or your COO or anything of a hospital, you look for a good doctor. You need to get a good doctor in here. And that would eliminate everything, all of this stuff. Say, hey man, we got a really good doctor, who cares what they do, you know? That would
You'd probably
cover-
like us to remain solvent, but yeah.
cover a million sins if you got a good doctor in here.
Well, and we did bring in a good doctor, and Dr. Pafford, he's come in and began December, January area, and we're looking at other physicians as well. So we are cognizant of that and working at it,
Good.
all right?
And
So that's-
one of the issues is being a smaller facility, people are wearing a lot of hats. One of the big pushes that came out of our strategic planning over the weekend was quality, 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 and establishing a real quality program, quality improvement program. So anyway, that's some of the things that are coming in the pipeline. I wanted to, and I think it'll probably be helpful if I draw it on the board instead of explaining district and corporate and what's a corporation and how that all is, because I think that there's been a lot of confusion between kind of how the governance works. So, and feel free to pipe up if I say something or if you have something to add, but
I'm gonna come where I can see.
where you can see, okay, good idea. Originally, back in the 70s, there was a hospital district that was created through resolution through the county commissioners. Okay, and that comprises 5 elected. In the law, it's anywhere between 3 and 5, but at that point, it was established that there was gonna be 5 elected hospital district members. And so when we talk about district members, that's what that's referring to. In the mid-80s, and up to that point, the hospital district was the governance structure. In the mid-80s, there was a corporation in conjunction, I believe, Cliff, you have really good memory about this, in conjunction with Community Medical Center. There was an association there. There was a, 501c3?
Yes.
Okay.
They were both at that time managed by Brand.
Mhm. Managed by Brent.
Are you no longer managed by Brim?
No. Okay, and this was in conjunction with Community Medical Center. There was, at that point, there was a corporation that was formed to manage the hospital with Community Medical Center under BRIM for the hospital district. Okay, so there's a nonprofit corporation that manages it for the district. And at that point, from what I understand, the 5 district members served on this nonprofit board.
They were still elected there.
The district,
The district
yes.
was still elected.
They're always elected.
Maybe if you refer to them as trustees.
Trustees.
To differ them from directors.
Oh, okay.
But they're called directors, what's the difference?
Legally, they're trustees.
Not according to our constitution and bylaws.
That's how they get elected. You looked at the ballot.
Okay.
Okay.
So be it then.
And that nonprofit board, in order to enter into this agreement and have Community Medical Center work together with us to make the hospital, they required that they have some say. So they insisted that there were additional directors on that board other than just the elected
So
directors.
so the creation of the nonprofit happened in the 80s. Fast forward, I'm not exactly sure what happened between then and the 90s when there was put together a lease agreement between the hospital district and the 501c3 nonprofit that runs the hospital for the district. And in that lease agreement, there were descriptions on what each has jurisdiction over. And the hospital district retains anything over the facility. So when we're talking about physical facility, at that point, they were getting ready to build the assisted living care, and anything physical, capital equipment, those kinds of things, the hospital district would retain jurisdiction over. So if you noticed in the last hospital meeting, we had closed the hospital board meeting and opened a hospital district meeting, and the only ones who are on that hospital district are the elected. So it would be John Woodland, Carol Bilodeau, and Terry Smith. It was James Patterson and Jim DeBree. And so they're the ones that makes those decisions for the hospital district. Included in that would be anything that has to do with a tax levy. Anything that would come to the county as a tax levy can only come through this hospital district and those trustees. Okay. So when you ask questions about whether being able to go to the public and ask for a mill levy or anything like that, that hospital district are the only. I'm not an elected member. I have no say or jurisdiction over that whatsoever. So, in that lease, so the nonprofit at that point, there currently are 9 members of this nonprofit board. Okay, so you have the 5 trustees from the hospital district, and then there are 4 what we call corporate. And that enables us to bring people outside of the county if we so need to fill some specialty needs. And we have in the past, we've had members from St. Patrick's Hospital and Community Hospital as part of those 4. But that's the way it currently sits. By virtue of being an elected hospital district trustee, they're automatically on this 9-member hospital board. Does that make sense?
And the corporate are appointed
Oh, yes.
by the board.
And they are appointed.
And they have a similar term than
And,
the other
yeah, so these are
district.
3. These are also 3 years.
I guess another important factor to recognize there is that the 4 corporate directors could not outvote the 5 elected trustees.
And I believe that was by design.
Yes, it is.
Because there was at one point where not all 5 hospital district trustees were automatically on the nonprofit board. It actually rotated through where it was the 3 trustees that had the most tenure would automatically be on, and then the other 2 weren't, and they were only voted on the district issues, which were these. So, other questions? Emily, did you have a question?
So you're saying this is the way it is now?
This is currently the way it is
Well,
now.
we don't use BRIM anymore.
Well,
Well,
so
yeah,
Brim,
Brim's not
yeah,
still in
Brim's,
it.
How is it now?
right, so now.
It's the same structure
The
without
governance
Brim.
structure is the same.
So
We
we're
no
still-
longer have the association that we did with Community Medical
Okay.
Center either.
That goes away too.
That goes away too. So if you see on any of the legal documents that our legal name is Missoula Health Services, Inc., That's where
Missoula
that
Community
historically.
Community Health Services.
Say it is again?
Missoula Community Health Services, Inc.
So if you see that
DBA
name.
Mineral Community Hospital.
DBA Mineral Community Hospital, that historically, that's where that legal name came from, because we used to be associated with Community Medical Center.
You're not anymore.
Mm-mm. Not-
So
not-
how is the structure, so 4 of you represent that corporate structure now?
Represent, this is the nonprofit board, and so there's 4 of us on the nonprofit board, 5, there's 9 on the nonprofit board that runs the daily operations of the hospital as far as employees and, you know, everything related to that. The district controls the facility and the tax levy and anything having to do with that.
So do you have joint meetings with the hospital district as well, or?
Yes, they've kind of been combined into one. So when there's an issue that only the district can handle, typically what we do is we'll close this meeting, open a hospital district meeting, and then the hospital district will have their meeting, vote on whatever, or discuss what they need to. Then they would close that and we would reopen the main
And then only the
corporate.
5.
We do them at the same
District
time.
members
So could you explain why is it necessary to have 2 different boards? And what does that governance structure look like when they come together? I mean, what does the voting process look like? I guess it's really confusing to
Yeah.
me. It sounds like the 501c3 was there for a purpose at one point, and it's dissolved, and now you guys have kind of taken this over.